Two sacred numbers, pi and phi. There is a way, which is both ancient and modern, to represent geometry and numbers without the aid of sterile academic formulae, a way which attributes quality and psychic value to numbers. Although this knowledge is timeless, it historically dates back to ancient Greece, where it first blossomed. Picture yourselves there in ancient Athens, the place in which the laws of life were taught through the study of numbers. He who is not a geometer shall not enter. This is thought to be the admonition hanging over the entrance to Plato's academy. His foremost principles were thus revealed through arithmetic and geometry. There stands the Parthenon, the manifest symbol of all Greek knowledge and beauty, which we can only partially envision. Today, only ruins, however magnificent, can testify to its past greatness. Yet the teaching which created it is alive and flourishing, and from those ruins we can extract the cornerstone for a new civilization, one that will reclaim the value of numbers.
Four mysterious and deeply meaningful symbols have been ideally carved into it. We will rediscover the psychic importance of the cube and the sphere, the square and the circle, and we will examine several interesting relationships the study of numbers affords. Let us begin by talking about pi. It is a well-known fact that there is a relationship between the circumference and the diameter of a circle, that is, between a curve and a straight line. This relationship is called pi. The English mathematician William Jones first introduced this symbol in 1700, perhaps after Pythagoras, in whose honor the Greek initial of his name was used. Pi is a number which has infinite decimal places, therefore no one will ever be able to fully calculate it. We could go on writing numbers endlessly. The minds and hearts of men have always been preoccupied with calculating it. The ancient Egyptians approximated its value in a fraction, 22/7. Archimedes is said to have approximated its value geometrically, using a simple but effective method. He closed a circle within a series of inscribed and circumscribed polygons. As can easily be seen, the length of the circumference is enclosed by perimeters, the value of which can be calculated. The more the number of sides increases, the closer we get to the value of the circumference. Nevertheless, the latter can never actually be reached, only approximated. Therefore, even if we are given a radius, we will never know precisely how much the circumference measures. Consequently, there will always be a certain mystery in the relationship between a curve and a straight line. Mathematicians themselves refer to this number as being transcendent, an adjective connoting the divine. If we then project the radius onto the circumference, we split it into 6 perfectly matching parts, making up a hexagon or a 6-pointed star. These shapes have always been linked to beginnings, to causes, since they are created by the same radius as that of a circle. Where does pi take us? These kinds of numbers are very embarrassing, since they oblige us to acknowledge the existence of the infinite, albeit abstractly and speculatively. Yet there is nothing more concrete and exact than numbers, a point that is commonly agreed upon, as numbers are objective and universal. After all, mathematics is an exact science. Thus, it is necessary to conform to the exact nature of numbers. Due to its exact nature, the infinite, which is real and cognizable, is proof of the existence of a spiritual world underlying and pervading all forms, a world which is normally denied, yearned for, or simply ignored.
Numbers like pi are there to prove this concept. They are both earthly and quantitative, heavenly and qualitative. They exist, they are real. Anyone can draw a circle and find pi inside it, but they cannot be measured. This is not sheer fantasy. Let us consider this carefully. The purpose of this video is to get you thinking about this indisputable fact. Nobody is able to measure the circumference of a circle precisely, even with the most advanced techniques and calculators. It is not possible and never will be. It is likewise impossible to measure space and thought, because they are infinite as well. This fact, which is acknowledged by the mind, suddenly wipes out a whole culture, a civilization based on quantity. The quantity of money, the quantity of titles, the quantity of possessions. Quantity has no place in the infinite. It simply does not exist. It is an illusion. We cannot define it as being either big or small. It is simply infinite, that is to say, endless. Thus, pi eludes quantity, as do all things stemming from it. However, not being able to measure it does not mean that it cannot be understood. Numbers are not only used to measure quantity, as they usually are. Numbers are energy-packed qualities. The same goes for geometry, the offspring of numbers. We calculate dimensions, areas, and perimeters to establish its size, its quantity. But we do not consider, investigate, the various qualities its geometry embodies, distinguishing a circle from a square, and the latter from a triangle. The circle and the sphere have always been considered heavenly geometric figures, being ideal and perfect. They are juxtaposed with the cube and the square, symbols of earth. Thus, a curved line pertains to the spiritual, the subtle world, the world of cause. A straight line represents concreteness, physicality, the world of effect. Pi is the power, both exact and real, linking spirit and form, cause and effect. It makes the passage from a formless world to a formal world possible. Pi takes what is heavenly and makes it earthly, and vice versa, renders the earth similar to heaven. Form and spirit are both real and existent. They are qualities, aspects of a single infinite energy, neither of which can be denied because they are both part of a whole. They are exactly the same thing. Every time a form is born, secretly yet precisely, the power of pi is at work. It is capable of shaping the invisible. An atom, a man, or a planet is born. That is why pi is not an issue only concerning mathematicians. From now on, each time we look at a sphere or cube, square or circle, we will see them in a new light. The sphere represents the spiritual world, the cube, the manifest material world. However, they are both one, different aspects of a single infinite energy. Pi reveals this mystery to us.
Curves and straight lines are qualities of the same kind. We can devise a new Oriental-style mantra expressing its essence. Pi is the power which curves straight lines and straightens curves, turning substance into spirit and spirit into substance. And both are one. It is a truth which is continually being substantiated. Here is a straight line. We would all swear that we are looking at a straight line. Yet, if we back away, we can also see a curve. All straight lines are part of a curve, and all curves contain straight lines. As we can see, the straight line is part of our sacred sphere. In there lies pi, the power, which, as previously stated, curves straight lines and straightens curves, thus destroying the illusory dualism separating the spiritual world from the physical one, the invisible from the visible. This is the ancient conception of numbers and geometry, for which we have coined the word psychogeometry, the laws of numbers applied to the psyche, to life. Let us now talk about the other sacred number, phi, an infinite number just like pi. It is more commonly known as the golden section because it involves subdivision. Even in this case, the Greek letter stands for a name. It is the initial for Phidias, the great sculptor of the Parthenon. Indeed, it is believed that this extraordinary temple was built to exalt this ratio, which was named phi in his honor in the previous century. According to this ratio, a segment of any length can be divided into two unequal parts in such a way as to obtain two segments in which the lesser of the two is to the greater, as the greater is to the sum of both. Thus, the same ratio links both parts to each other and to the whole. That is why it was called golden. It was the best of links, making both itself and the joined segments a single entity, as set forth in Plato's Timaeus. Finding the golden section of a segment is a very simple geometric operation. Firstly, let us divide the segment in half and use 1/2 to form the side of a triangle, which then also becomes the diagonal of a rectangle formed by two squares. Let us draw a first arc with the side of the square as the radius, followed by a second arc passing through the point on the diagonal located previously. The point where the circle touches the segment marks the division into the golden proportion. There you will find phi. Inversely, we can create a golden segment by drawing a square, which we will conventionally call side 1. Divide this side in half again and draw a straight line joining that point to the opposite end of the square. With a simple stroke of the compass, a new segment is created, which is in the golden section, with the initial side of the square. By using the greater segment as the length and the lesser as the width, we can create a rectangle from these perfect proportions, the golden rectangle. The same thing will happen, of course, if we use the entire segment as the length and the greater section as the width. This will also be a golden rectangle. This kind of rectangle seems to have been used in ancient building techniques, as many studies have shown. Here is yet another surprise the golden rectangle has in store for us. If we single out the square it contains, we obtain a smaller golden rectangle. This can be repeated again and again, proving the infinite nature of the golden section. Nature often presents us with the same construction rules in shells, sunflowers, crystals, even the human body. Phi is the perfect construction rule. The golden proportion exists in a geometric figure which we should indeed consider sacred, the five-pointed star. Each measure of its sides presents golden ratios. The study of geometry is far-reaching. It may be surprising to know, for example, that the two stars linked to Phi and Pi, the 5 and 6-pointed stars, follow the same pattern as the orbit of two planets, Jupiter and Saturn, proving that the study of the infinite is limitless. There is so much to say about numbers, but we have purposely not talked about them at length because not everyone is immediately and irresistibly attracted to them. Nevertheless, the aim of this paper is to underline the psychic nature of the golden section, and in order to do this, no particular inclination towards mathematics is required, since its value is universal. We firmly believe that this ratio provides the basis for any type of relationship, even among humans, by virtue of this simple relationship. The lesser is to the greater as the latter is to the whole. In this way, any difference which is bound to exist will be resolved in the whole. To use a modern expression, it is oneness in diversity. However, it is not the brainchild of idealistic or inchoate thinking. It is the result of an exact proportion which mirrors reality with absolute precision. The concept of major and minor, greater and lesser, pertains to the condition of being human. It not only refers to quantity, but also quality, level, capacity, and competence. It is the duty of people who are more gifted, expert, and wise, which we have termed major people, to help the less endowed, minor people, and unite them with the whole. In turn, minor people should recognize and accept this help and guidance, although it should never be imposed on them. When both these conditions exist, the relation is golden, and there is no separation. If in actual fact the lesser is to the greater, as the latter is to the whole, then nothing separates the former from the latter. Indeed, they are both indispensable in forming a whole. This is far from our usual way of thinking. Ordinarily, major people, who are only quantitatively so, are primarily concerned with exploiting minor people. Therefore, we have to learn to apply the indisputable exactness of mathematics to life. The solution to all the inequalities afflicting humanity lies in applying this perfect ratio, since oneness can be attained by uniting several unequal parts. The process of human integration does not come about by way of improvisation. Rather, it is the inevitable outcome of applying the right procedure. This divine ratio must be applied to all relationships in which each person at any given time is both greater than somebody and less than somebody else. Therein a kind of living social mathematics is born, substituting value for quantity and rendering each relationship golden. Whichever the direction you decide to take, the rule remains the same: oneness in parts and parts in oneness. Here are some of the infinite terms of the ratio between major and minor. A child is to a parent as a parent is to a family. The right bond creates unity. If a child does not acknowledge a parent's authority, and the latter refuses to act as a guide or becomes dictatorial, the family falls apart. We see this happening all the time. A citizen is to a politician as a politician is to a community. This is indeed a blatant example. Do politicians today, acting as major guides to the nation, have minor people's best interest at heart for the good of the community as a whole? Is not this very lack of integrity the cause of the degradation afflicting humanity? Some other examples. The lower kingdoms, animal, mineral, and plant, are to the human kingdom as the latter is to the planet. The earth is to the sun as the sun is to the solar system. The solar system is to Sirius as Sirius is to a greater entity we know nothing about. Our galaxy is certainly to a set of unknown galaxies as the latter are to a greater set containing them all, right up to the infinite universe. Wherever we venture, however great the scope of our thought, the proportion is still the same. All lives, all consciences are linked in this way. In such a way, I am one, we are one, as numbers have shown us, and divisions are only illusory. It is proof of what all spiritual philosophies have always affirmed: one in many and many in one. Even the golden ratio, like pi, nullifies quantities, since no matter how big the majors and minors are, all that matters is the relationship between them, which is always the same. We are thus conveying this message, surprising yet clear, which the mind cannot refute. Quite the opposite. The more it is contemplated, the stronger it grows. The solution to all separations is reached by finding the right balance between major and minor. This relationship is at the heart of all relationships, because by distinguishing the parts, major and minor, they are simultaneously united. Only by doing so will humanity discover being one and all. It is true that we are not yet able to do so, since man has not learned to evaluate the relationship between human qualities exactly. However, the divine proportion shows us how to do this clearly and precisely, as it teaches us to distinguish without separating and to join without distinguishing. Two universally known sentences encapsulating all teaching and thought of the highest degree are in themselves examples of the golden ratio. Love thy neighbor as thyself. Do not do to others what you would not have them do to you. The infinite number of relationships are also exemplified in the bond between master and disciple. When that relationship is golden, the disciple ultimately addresses the master and declares, I am you, and you are me, parts of divine oneness. The deepest possible understanding man can fathom is in numbers. This is the cornerstone for a new culture and civilization. The length of this video is certainly not enough to reflect the blinding light radiating from such thoughts. However, it might strike a spark in the countless hearts in which the seed of newness has already been planted, the seed acknowledging mathematics and geometry as the focal point for the study of the infinite. Pi and Phi are the keys, and humanity is called upon to receive them. Let us gather one last gift proving this deep bond. It is generally known that 10 is considered to be the number of perfection. Perhaps it is not as well known that the golden section of a radius generates a regular 10-sided polygon. Therefore, 10 is a perfect construction created by Phi on a plane prepared by Pi. We shall conclude by reiterating the two sentences which have been used to define the value of pi and the golden ratio, almost as if they were modern prayers, free statements of man, the eternal seeker of knowledge. Pi is the power which curves straight lines and straightens curves. And for Phi, I am you, and you are me, parts of divine oneness.